Imagine, if you will, a completely useless and irrelevant podcast. You don't have to. You've downloaded this one, where two of the three hosts are connected by a third who isn't nearly as smart or funny as they are, but yet does most of the talking. Biff, the smart one, a Japanese native and resident of California by way of Toronto, is a computer programmer, yet is plagued by tech issues most episodes. Biff has played hockey with Jacques since the late 90s. But if Biff is so smart, why does he continue to co-host this podcast? Joe, considered by all who know him, including all the comedian guests they've had, to be the funniest person they know. Yet Joe says the only funny thing about him is his life is a joke. Gifted or cursed, you decide, with encyclopedic knowledge of video games, game shows, and 80s sitcoms. Then there's Jacques. What can be said about Jacques he won't say about himself repeatedly over the course of this episode, as he has every episode before of this Batman Forsaken podcast. The signpost up ahead says turn around, stop listening, but you're still here. Sad. You've just crossed over into the Carnival Personnel Podcast Zone. I'm dumb. Hey, Biff, what did the mummy spider say to the baby spider?
There is no Biff here. I think he died. I think he decided that he just can't live with these stupid jokes.
First of all,
so he has no idea what the.
First of all, I was talking to Popeye Pirate Biff from a couple weeks ago. But...
Good.
So we'll try this again. Hey Biff, what did the mummy spider say to the baby spider?
What did the mummy spider say to the baby spider?
You spend too much time on the web.
Nobody calls it the web anymore. That's like a 20-year-old joke.
All right, here we go. Hey Biff, what did the mummy tree say to her son before the big game?
What did the mummy tree say to her son before the big game, Jacques?
I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Happy Mother's Day, everybody. Happy belated Mother's Day, everybody. Welcome to Carnival Personnel. I'm Jacques.
This is Biff.
And this be Biff too. Hello.
It's a good thing we got the stereo Biff this week.
So, Joe and I just moments ago finished a sideshow that won't drop for a few weeks, but our run of sideshow guest just has continued to be great. A friend of both mine and Joe's, the other co-champ of the Boston Comedy Festival, Casey Crawford, we just recorded to, and I'm going to say, Joe, a delight.
Yes. They're all delights. What are we going to have a guest on and say, we could have done better. We were really slumming it this week with this guest, but don't worry, we'll get some good guests the next time.
Well,
I think what you meant to say was, once again, another delight, right?
Yes. Last week's sideshow, guest Angelica, Scanora, the other co-winner from Toronto, host, and she has a really fun YouTube channel, Angelica's Daily Surprise. Honestly, I've just started a couple episodes ago, kind of pulling funny clips to be more active on the social for the show and stuff. And I don't think I got through the first 5 minutes of that show that I didn't pull 6 clips that were, worthy of posting. She was great. Next week's guest is a guy named Joe Katz, who was another finalist at the Boston Comedy Festival, a young kid, 24, I think he is. Mm-hmm. Absurdist humor, really great. But it is, I'm just so excited because I got to be on a show last night, hosted by my friend, mine and Joe's friends, Anthony Eugenio.
Fellow Portuguese person.
Yep.
There are two of us now.
Well, the funny thing is, Biff, like my two of our friends have a podcast called Open Mic Pain, and I met them a year ago when they just started doing comedy, and it's two friends, Wayne and Anthony. And Wayne is a heavy-set, middle-aged white guy, whose best pal is the son of a Portuguese, immigrant. Listen. And I guess that's the template for comedy.
If you want the Hawaii, the Portuguese comedy scene,
right.
You head to Hawaii. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Not even joking.
Oh, well,
because Hawaii does have a history of like these a large number of Portuguese immigrants. So
or conquerors. Whatever.
Well, yeah. But in all seriousness, I think maybe there's a guy named Frank de Lima who's now passed. I think he might have been of Portuguese descent. But like in Hawaii, he's like legendary.
Little known fact: Don Ho from the Azores. So there's a lot of no.
Oh,
what the hell?
You could have. Dude, I don't know. There's hoes all over the place. I hear.
But you know what's funny?
I think Portuguese.
We look up the Wikipedia, and it turns out he does have Portuguese blood. It's like oh, look at that.
His Portuguese blood on his hands. Anyway,
that's a different issue altogether.
Anyway.
Oh, so the comedy thing, it's really great. Friday night, I had a rare opportunity to go out that I wasn't doing a show. Usually if I have something scheduled, we can move the chess pieces around. But it was one of those things where management was going to be home. I could go out. And I text like Steve Bjork. I'm like, hey, are you going up within like a half hour of Lowell tonight? Because I was willing to go out, but within reason, And then I get a call from previous guest, Dave Radigan, who's booked me a bunch of stuff. Joe and I saw him a few weeks ago. It's like, hey, you want to go to this show in Marlboro? I'm like, fantastic. But then last night, Anthony was hosting a show with Wayne. Casey Crawford was the headliner. And they were like, hey, Jack, you want to come do 7 minutes on it? And I'm like, fantastic. And then I get there and they're like, yeah, we're going to move some stuff around. You want to do 10? I'm like, fine. It was a fun night. But there's always there's always a cloud and a silver lining when you deal with Joe. And why don't you tell them about what your afternoon's going to be like, Joe? What do you have scheduled?
I didn't mean that for that to be on the air. I mean, what the
oh, okay, yeah. Well,
I left my credit card behind because I'm a drunk. I'm a stupid drunk. I had 2 drinks and I left my credit card there, despite hanging out after the show outside of the venue for an hour talking to other comics, going back in to use the restroom. I still didn't retrieve my credit card from the bar, which goes to show you I should not be drinking or starting tabs. I should always pay cash, a little something extra for the effort as well, and so whatever. But yeah, I get to go back to Manchester because I'm lucky.
Manchester, New Hampshire, another mill town. Yeah, no, it was a fun night. I cut myself off after 1 drink, and thank you for that beverage, Joe. I was partying pretty hard.
Yeah.
I'm on the wagon. Well, I don't drink anyways, but I'm now, as of right now, Biff, as of today, I'm 6 days soda free, which is a huge thing for me because I'm a 6 to 10 sodas a day guy.
Yeah.
How I'm not dead.
It's good. The ocean thanks you for not buying all that plastic.
No, I swapped it out with back on the Snapple. But last night, Joe treated me to a delicious glass of pineapple juice.
They all have added sugar, man. It doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't.
Is that for something you're hoping for afterwards or anything like that? Or I'm just asking questions.
No. The upside down pineapple means something. The upside down pineapple glass. Yeah, it just means somebody has to come clean it up. So, that's been the comedy thing. Biff hurt me jotting down notes to myself and started berating me. I wanted to talk about Max Weinberg's son for a minute.
Oh, shush.
No, seriously, because we watch Seth Meyers. It's one of our favorite shows. And almost since the get-go, he has a different guest drummer every week.
Yep. Yep.
And this past week's guest drummer was really cool because yes, Max Weinberg's son is an accomplished drummer, drummer of Slipknot of
not anymore.
But I mean,
he was. He had
Not to be confused with
lost his job.
Not to be confused with the Slipknots.
oh, yes,
No, I know.
Yes,
There's a band that comedy, late night comedy, legendary thing. Anyway, continue.
It was, but I just thought it was like so cool. You know, not only is he following in his dad's footsteps career wise, but to be back at that set.
Sure.
You know, the late night with Seth Meyers.
Absolutely.
You know, yeah, I did. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, Biff started berating me because he's like, you know, don't define him as being Mac Weinberg's son and then instantly listen credits.
2023, you know, Metal Drummer of the Year. He's won multiple of those Metal Drummers of the Year things, right? He was, you know, Slipknot's drummer for about 7 or 8 years. He unceremoniously got booted. Still no explanation as to why they would kick out the Metal Drummer of the Year, but they did. He's now with Infectious Grooves. But I think as a drummer, when you have time, I know you're very busy, but when you do have time, and I know you don't like reading, and it's a long read, but he had this great article. I'm trying to remember where he posted it about when he was developing as a drummer. He had to fill in for his dad. He kind of got the arrangement to fill in for his dad when Max still had the Tonight Show gig and he couldn't get away. He was contractually obligated to work it. So he did like a 3-month stint in Europe where he was told, okay, you have to learn these 500 songs. 500 songs. And the reason why they had to do it is because I guess Springsteen, what they do is like during the show, like people would just hold up signs and say, hey, play this song. And they say, all right, we'll play this song. I mean, apparently this is a thing in Springsteen's show. So that made me kind of want to see him again. But
that's awesome. No, you know what?
So yeah, all these Charge and Tribute. It's a great
what was
read.
his first name again?
Jay Weinberg?
Jay Weinberg, because all I heard was Max Weinberg's son for about 5 minutes, but Jay Weinberg.
Right, that's right. Well, he replaced his dad, right? So he actually filled in for his dad, which is pretty. Also, last side note, Jay Weinberg, former goaltender. So,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
He geeks out on goalie. I think he was actually on, I want to say Mike McKenna's podcast a long time ago. Mike McKenna is a former journeyman goalie.
Yeah, dude, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
What a well-rounded individual he is.
Yeah.
But now I want to know why he got thrown out of Slipknot. You know?
So does everybody else.
Oh, that is so great. So it is.
Semites.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Gilbert Gottfried. Why do you think he got thrown out?
Oh, because he's a Jew. It's because the Jewish people, they're the reason I don't have a career.
So Biff, I don't know if you have a Japanese crime story for us this week, but I have I want to say a U.S. crime story towards the land of the rising sun and a overdue wrong made right.
Oh, yeah. I don't have a great crime story. The big story this week was the fact that this bread factory had to recall like 10,000 loaves of bread because 2 people found rat pieces in the bread. So that was a big news this week.
They just call it cinnamon raisin in America.
Chocolate bread.
Yeah.
Chocolate chips.
But,
chocolate chip surprise.
But the U.S. just last week returned 22 looted artifacts after the Battle of Okinawa.
Okay. I did not hear that.
Yeah, they've been in U.S. possession since then. You know, I don't know exactly how they went about assessing that there was 22 items, or maybe 22 items were, rounded up, but they were just returned to Japan last week.
Apparently the Japanese don't give a shit because I didn't see it. The thing that they cared about was apparently Biden saying something about how Japan's economy is struggling because they don't welcome the immigrants, and apparently they were all over that. But apparently, getting stuff returned, they don't give a crap.
Right, because the truth hurts.
Which is kind of sad.
Well, they wanted to get the other side of the story and get some, immigrants over there, but they were none to be found.
Right.
Well, you know what? Maybe she will become an immigrant to Japan. Our good friend Renetsky is headed over there in August.
Oh, nice.
You know,
Oh my God, really? Okay.
yeah, she's pretty excited about it. Why is
I mean,
August?
uh,
Is there a
it is
Godzilla attack scheduled?
it is so freaking hot in August, dude. Like August in Tokyo is hotter than two rats fucking in a wool sock. Oh, I'm saying that's a Ichiro quote. But I mean, no, it's too. Yeah, August in Tokyo is brutal. August in Japan in many places is pretty brutal.
Well, I don't know why she's going at that time, but I do know she's going to Disneyland and is quite excited about it.
Oh yeah, I wonder if it's because I think they're opening some new Disney Sea attractions.
Yeah,
I think it might be open by then.
They just opened. And then, but about the stolen World War II artifacts, I'm quite sure the Vatican is going to take, hey, the U.S. has done this. Maybe we'll return all our stolen, ill-gotten,
I'm sorry. Did you not read the Bible? It says "Thou shalt not steal." So obviously, if they have it, it wasn't stolen.
Well, that's true. Yeah. The good people of Germany gave that to hold on to them while some of their citizens were relocating at the time, I guess, and it just hasn't found its way back to those people. So it is. It is now May. It is now the biggest sports. You know what? We're going to dive right into sports. It is the biggest sports time of the year for you, is it not, Biff?
The biggest.
How many hours a day are you digesting of hockey?
It's actually sad because I've been so wiped out from work that, I mean, even yesterday, like on a Saturday, I missed an entire game taking a nap. So this has been a horrible playoff season for me in terms of I've lost so much viewing time, because of nap time, where I don't wake up from my naps. It's like, what are you doing? I'm just like, I should probably be, I should be looked at, if I can't wake up for hockey games. But yeah, it's been a great, a pretty great, playoff season. And first round was a surprise in that all the favorites got by the first round, which almost never happens in the NHL. So.
I haven't been following hockey in a while. I've jumped on the bandwagon just a tiny bit, but it was great to see Boston just absolutely pull off a stunner in triple overtime last night.
Okay.
Oh, I was talking the professional
You're
women's
talking about
hockey
the PWHL?
league. That's right.
The PWHL?
That's right.
Can you even name a player on that team?
I can.
Because if you wouldn't wanted to, where they play their home games?
Well, where they play some of their home games. Some of their home games they play in Lowell.
That's the Songa Center.
Yeah,
that's their primary home arena.
And it's funny because they're doing so well. My sister had to wait a couple months because I don't know if it was. She's in a couple book reading groups and these groups, but she's in a group with 8 different women who wanted to go together and they couldn't get tickets all together for towards the end of the season. So it is great that that to see that it is doing that well. And I tell you, it was nice because I was at the gym this morning and I looked up and ESPN, and I don't know if it was just because it was a triple overtime game, but ESPN was showing highlights of that game before the NHL highlights.
Yeah, they actually do a pretty good job of that in terms of at least showing a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it's too bad we don't have Maria on the pod today, because then we would just kind of geek out about. There's a whole discussion that I could have about how Boston's goalie Erin Frankel, I think she stopped 104 of 106 shots in 2 games, which is ridiculous in a playoff game. And then but she won the Patty Kazmaier around 2021. But she was snubbed off of the U.S. women's national team. I'm thinking, what are you guys thinking? Have you seen this person play? She is so freaking good. And of course, she was on the roster for 2023. She won the goal for the U.S. All that stuff, right? But I mean, fantastic goalie for Boston.
So it's the 4 teams in playoffs: Boston, Montreal, Minnesota, and Toronto.
Yep.
And look. You know
what the joke is, right? Like the whole thing about Toronto's going to bring home their first, right? I mean, that has been that's been the joke. Of course, because obviously the men can't do it, so obviously we have to rely on the women to get the job done. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, don't I haven't followed the Bruins or any hockey this year, but did it give me delight that the Boston Bruins, made it to the second round, or did it give me more delight that Toronto didn't? Like that's
I think this is the thing. Like I had no expectation that Toronto makes it, but I do really think that is the whole problem with the sports fan bases right now. The kind of the not so much the pro one team, but the anti other team toxicity. Because if you watch, this is where I go bananas with the Twitter. It's like, why are you ragging on these guys? Why are you hating on you have no reason to talk about the Edmonton Oilers. Your team's out. Leave them alone.
Well, it is. It's funny because that's how I've always been wired. Like, I don't follow baseball anymore.
Yeah.
And I hope the Red Sox do well just because I have so many friends who like them. And I know they won't. They're going to suck forevermore. But if they finish 28 games out of first place, but I hear the Yankees were 29 games out of first place, even when the Red Sox sucked when I loved them in the 80s and the 90s, if they were a half game ahead of the Yankees, but 20 games out of the playoffs, it was a good year. It was a year. How'd they do this year? Oh, they did really, really good.
Look, I'm not. It's not like I'm better than anybody else. Like, I certainly will never, ever, for the rest of my life, ever want to see the Cowboys win the Super Bowl ever. I mean, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to voice it out.
I think that's how politics are going now. Is that everybody's voting against the other side? That's all it is. They're not voting for anything. Yeah. They don't have any moral values on their own or anything that they want to.
I've always had that theory that sports radio essentially gave birth to that whole political thing.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
100%. And it is. It's scary that it's like, I used to joke about, things like that it's like, oh, I wouldn't be friends with somebody who was a Jet fan, or, I think one of the big things that changed sports for me is when I started, dabbling and working in sports, and the people who I dealt with on a regular basis, because I did like 3 or 4 Indianapolis Colt games, were absolutely so wonderful and such a pleasure to work with. And the Miami Dolphins, crew, the 3 people that I worked with down there. And I told one of them at one point, I'm like, I resent so much how you're taking my hatred away. I don't want Miami to ever win. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm rooting for Miami, but my diet is fueled, as most Boston sports people is, on hatred, and I can't. They made it hard for me to hate the Colts. They made it hard for me to hate and even Kansas City. I think the reason I'm a fan-ish of Kansas City is because they were the first big NFL gig that I worked, and they sucked at the time. This is 2005.
Sure, yeah.
I don't ever remember people being nicer in my professional life to work with, so I've always rooted for them. But
Casey's like 50 years between Super Bowl wins, right?
They were they definitely
they won like Super Bowl 4 or like something like that in like 1970 or 69 or something like that, and then or Super Bowl 3 maybe, and then they won their recent one.
Well, the Jets won Super Bowl 3.
Yes, they did. How have they done since then? And what was and then the other Super Bowl?
You just go straight there. You can't help yourself.
They're due.
I can't. I definitely can't. No, but yeah, I mean, it's funny the things that have like softened, and I do. You know what? And I'm not being sarcastic when I say this. I do feel bad for the Leaf fan base, and I empathize with them because the Leafs are what the Boston Red Sox were, because, and this is why I put them in the same category. All those years the Red Sox didn't win like the World Series. People always said, "Oh, the Red Sox and the Cubs." It's like, no, the Cubs sucked. Most of the between the last World Series that the Cubs won, they sucked 90% of that time. They were statistically out of the playoffs 3 weeks after the season started. Where the Red Sox, on the other hand, at the same as the Maple Leafs, it's not that they lose playoff rounds or that they're
lost it.
In the 7th game. Number
1 strike away.
Right. The number.
The Buckner was game 6, but still, right?
No, but that's
right.
Well, they were 1 strike away
from winning. Yeah.
From winning, and then the wheels fell off.
But here's the other thing, Biff. That didn't win the World Series.
No,
That forced a game 7.
7, yep.
And just like Montreal, just like the Maple Leafs, the Red Sox from 1919 to 2004, they lost 7 Game 7s in the World Series. They made it to the World Series a bunch of other times, but they lost 7 Game 7s. It wasn't like, the whole thing like Carlton Fisk's big home run. That forced a Game 7. So let me feel bad for the Leafs.
The Toronto Maple Leafs are the Montreal Canadiens of losing Game 7.
Yeah. Right? Let me just interject there by first mentioning the fact that you should not feel sorry for the Toronto fans because they are a horrible fan base. And the reason why I differentiate between the Leafs fans, Red Sox fans, Cubs fans, back in the day when they were losing, both the Red Sox fans and Cubs fans were kind of adorable because you know what, they were like, they had that, okay, it's gonna come, something kind of good's gonna happen, but somebody's gonna pull the rug from under us, right? That was the mentality. And you know what, they were not, they kind of fought, but they weren't obnoxious, fan bases like, and maybe the fact that Toronto right now has been in their losing thing in the age of the internet and the sports,
the toxicity.
Maybe that makes things worse. But I'm sorry, but as a Leaf fan, I don't feel bad for the Leaf fans at all. I mean, it's like they're horrible. It's like, and the thing is, so since '67, Toronto has never been to the Stanley Cup Finals. Never.
Right.
They haven't even. The closest they came was to I think the year Carolina went. They went to the conference finals.
You don't forget we have a good friend. Our good friend Mr. Taylor was at Game 7 in Maple Leaf Garden the last time a hat trick was scored in a Game 7. And
right. But I'm talking about the last time they went to the conference finals was in like 1998 when the Carolina eventually lost the Stanley Cup Finals.
And how often are they out in the first round? And again, that's why I jumped off. I was barely holding on to my fandom with the NHL. And after last year, it wasn't that the Bruins lost in the first round. It's they broke every record in the history of the goddamn sport, and we're out in the first round. But that's it. But again, there's again Scanora, Angelica Scanora, last week's guest, huge Montreal Blue Jays fans. She hates the Maple Leaf because of the fan base.
As she should. They're horrible.
And she can't, and she's like, I go to baseball games because you can't get a ticket to Maple Leaf Garden. And if you do, it's harder. It's more expensive than a Taylor Swift ticket.
No, it really is stupid.
I object, gentlemen. Are you saying that some Canadians are not polite? Is that what we're saying? Is that what we're saying right now? Because I'm not buying it.
You know how like when you go to the South and like they keep telling you, oh, God bless you. It's kind of like that.
Oh yes, right. Yes.
Kind of like that.
Gotcha.
So I played a absolute the tiniest role in the history of the great WNBA career that's about to start happening for Caitlin Cook. My really good friend Kip, who he's the season ticket holder of the Kansas City Chiefs, ran the Phoenix Suns for 20 some years. We do a lot of sports stuff together. He texted me the other day because he does the game up. He flies in for the big events or the beginning of every season for a couple weeks for the Connecticut Suns. And he texted me the other day saying, hey, I'm taking a red eye. I never get in this early. The flight's landing at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. The hotel doesn't have a shuttle service that runs to later, and I don't know how good Uber's going to be at like 5:30 in the morning. Do you know anybody who? And my brother works for a company that does the airport shuttles from Logan, and so I called my brother, and so he hooked the guy up, and it was really funny. Long story, a little longer. I didn't realize that Caitlin Cook's first game in the WNBA is being played in Connecticut against the Connecticut Suns, and that it is the first game being broadcast for the new live sport package with Disney Plus.
Oh, interesting. Fascinating. Yeah.
What's fascinating is, Disney Plus and ESPN owned by the same company in the same bubble.
Yeah.
But if you put the WNBA, how many different eyeballs are going to hear for the first time about the WNBA because it will be on the boot up screen of Disney Plus.
Right.
Like everybody who follows sports knows, oh, okay, well, this woman probably is going to rewrite every record in the history of women's basketball to come.
It's not fair that she's getting paid the same amount of money I pay Disney for Disney Plus. It's like, wait a minute.
There is that.
Well, but I mean, kind of adjacent to that, like, wasn't she offered like $1 million to play for Ice Cube's, whatever that touring, the whatever
the big three,
the big three,
and I've worked with the big three,
right.
But so like Brittany Griner, I mean, this is what I know about pro women's basketball. And again, only because I work with my buddy Kip and I've done a bunch of stuff with him in the WNBA. And that those athletes, the second their season's over, most of them are on a plane to Russia, Italy, Spain, and I want to say Turkey. I want to say Turkey is where
there was something in South America also, but if you just like, they go internationally to play, get summer winter income. And
so Brittany Griner, who was the number one paid WNBA star, I think she was pulling a cool $150,000 a year to play, whatever it is, a 42 game schedule or something like that, would go over to Russia and is getting $1 million to play like a 20 game schedule. Yeah. It was, and in bigger stadiums, more coverage, like all of that kind of stuff. And things didn't really work out at the end after 7 years over being there. But yeah, it's sad that, all those athletes, have to have a second job.
Where NHL was 60 years ago, right? Maybe 70 years ago, like 50s and the early 60s. That's where the NHL was, where, hey, hockey players got summer jobs.
Well, John Taylor, I think his favorite thing is Andy Bathgate, a big player in the 50s and the early 60s. When John was a kid, got his autobiography or his book where he talks about it's important when you get your summer job to get it at like the auto parts store, so you're getting a good workout and you're moving and there's some physicality. Like that was his training tip is like in the off season, because you have to go back to Banff and work.
Well, Bobby Hall was farming in the summer, right?
Right. Boy, was he ever, that iconic picture.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. Seriously, Biff, it's Joe, it's one of the most famous, behind the scene thing is him, pitching hay off a truck. And looks like the statue of David.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, holy shit.
Freaking Adonis, unloading hay, right? It's like,
seriously. Yeah. Am I completely straight? I'm not sure. Looking at that. So
you're gay for hay.
So
one of our friends, Steve, said kind of the same thing about one of the hockey players he saw during one of our celebrity things. So, same thing, that guy. Anyway,
so talking about women getting underpaid. Joe and I, as we were driving to Manchester yesterday, so he could leave his car there, was talking about went to his son's presentation at school. And why don't you talk about how the gals' presentations went at his school? Because you were you made an interesting thing that parallels
life.
Life.
So go ahead.
No, you do it because you know so much about I went to see my son's senior presentation with his graphic design class, and not only his presentation I sat through, but about a dozen or so kids. They were split evenly, basically male, female, or at least boy looking and girl looking, as Tony V would put it.
Wow.
And the girl looking ones seemed to way outshine the boy looking ones' presentations. Like they had, a lot of research done on their project, a lot of implementation, a lot of flair, and a lot of organization and structure. Where so much so as one girl's presentation incorporated. She was doing volunteer work at this environmental awareness kind of group, and she redid their logo. I don't know if they implemented it, but it looked very professional looking. I was like, oh, if they took this as their new logo, I would believe it. And she's definitely like very personable, going places, gonna be up there, way up there. So high up there that she's gonna at least get half of what her underlings get, her male underlings get. But like the boys' presentations, a lot of them were like, so I asked people if they liked Coke or Pepsi, and this is the chart I put together. And half people like the Coke and half people like Pepsi. And I thank you. I'm going to college next year, and I'm going to be a CEO in 10 years. So thank you.
Right. But when Joe said that we were driving, I'm like, oh, it's just soul crushing that everything sucks. Yeah.
Well, but I'm obviously making a joke about the way things are going. I mean, those women or girls will probably become much more successful women, or maybe those guys will like get their act together and eventually earn a good living. I mean, hey, they're probably all losers because they're going into graphic design. I mean, come on, like that's like what kind of money are you going to be making? You're going to be don't even get me started. Anyway, no,
AI is going to do all the graphic design.
Exactly, AI is going to just take all their jobs. They don't even none of them are going to get paid anything. So no, I was just making a joke about what their earning potential is. But I mean, chances are, the way things are going, A, they're not going to make a whole lot of money, and B, sexism will probably still exist in 15 years.
What? How dare you? How dare you?
I'm calling it now.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
So I was thinking maybe because it's been so long, we haven't had the podcast last week, and it would just delight me to hear you doing Paul Lynde's version of Frank Sinatra's My Way.
All right. No duress here. Doing it out of the kindness of my heart. And now, the end is near. And so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, it's the Jews. But then again, too many to mention. Did I mention the Jews? I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course and careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could. You know what I mean. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and swallowed it, baby. I faced it all, and I stood tall I've loved. I've laughed and cried. I've had my fill. And my John and Larry, get it? And now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that. And may I say, not in a shy way. Oh, no. No, not me. I did it my way. For what is a man but a grown-up boy? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. Oh boy, the record shows I gave the blows and did it my way when the Jews didn't stop me.
That might be the best one ever. That just might be the best self-indulgent theater ever.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Let's look back to the jerk, which is never that far out of my lexicon or Joe's. They didn't
The Jerk?
They didn't even have the decency to test it out on a prisoner when the optograph thing went sideways. The first person to receive a can you say that? Thank you. Modified pig kidney was a prisoner who just died. So at least they did learn from Carl Reiner that it is important when you're making these medical breakthroughs. Let's try it out on the prison system first. You know, just
gotta try it out somewhere.
Just that I brought that up. The other funny news item that is not funny. That is not funny. But it is.
So wait. Let me ask
Yes.
you this: does that mean that that's an advancement from just testing it out on random black people to prison? is this how this country has now advanced, that we're not just randomly doing it to
Biff the prisoner was black.
I'm not. I
know if he was.
I wasn't going to say that, but sure.
But not just any old black person.
But it's not
black.
random,
Nice.
is what I'm saying.
Yes, much more focused demographic.
The other funny news story. Remember back, and this is when the world really went to shit. 2015, when the whole "what color is this dress?"
The dress, yeah.
And, the guy who started that viral sensation just pled guilty to trying to strangle his wife.
Oh. Was it over the dress?
I'm guessing it's because she said it was blue. I know that's a real news thing. I'm not making it up. But when I was reading that, I'm thinking, okay, that's pretty awful.
That's an example of what's called a milkshake duck. And I'm not making it. You know what a milkshake duck is?
I'm about to find out.
It's it's kind of an internet term, and it basically it refers to something that looks pleasant on the surface, but then if you dig deeper, you find out that they have a dark secret that basically cancels them. This milkshake duck, like this duck drinking a milkshake is cute, but he's secretly a Nazi. You don't really know until you look a little further into their history.
Oh, man.
So if you find somebody who did something pleasant on the internet or gone viral for something, and then all of a sudden they come out with their beliefs, or if they go on a podcast and say something a little sideways, they're an example of what's called a milkshake duck.
I learned, you know what? The more you know. The more you know. I just, that.
Oh, the guy who made The More You Know? Nazi.
Nazi.
It's kind of funny because somebody just, I don't know if you guys watch it, was it Past Midnight?
After midnight.
After midnight, they rebooted that. I don't watch the show, but I saw they made the comics just like, the more you know things of these other, that was one of the things this week. So,
oh yeah,
this is a heavy more week for me.
Yeah.
So when you talk about awful people, so Mike Tyson, are you guys gonna watch the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight?
I don't watch any fights, nor will I watch this one.
I mean, you have to pay for it, right? That's like a pay-per-view, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Is it?
If it was already on, if it's already going to be on whatever stuff that I've already paid for it, I might watch a little bit, but I'm not going to pay extra money for it.
The PR team of wizards who have
Washington Wizards
who have turned Mike Tyson from convicted rapist.
And time has been served.
And time has been served to America's sweetheart. Like, I'm not saying, he can't have a
sweetheart
career.
Rapist. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. But it's like, I mean, and I think our friend Bill Fay had a little to do about that by putting him in The Hangover, and people loved it.
You know what? I'm going to forgive all of that. I would normally say I'm 100% behind you, but this is a country that's about who's the Republican presumed nominee for the president. I mean, when that's the state of the country, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, horrible, but you know what? Yeah.
I mean,
Mike Tyson won me over when he punched that passenger on the plane.
Oh,
who was bugging him the whole time.
100%. Like, I don't think we have to deep dive into that guy, the recipient of the punch, to know. Yeah, he probably had that coming for a very long time, but and he didn't die. But that guy should be at least in the finalist of Darwin, award.
Yeah, Darwin Awards, right?
Of all the bears to poke, Mike Tyson, who's not really known for turning the other cheek, Oh, that was great. But then again, it's like,
did he not play Mike Tyson's Punch Out at all as a kid? Like, how did he not know?
But then again, Jake Paul isn't somebody I'm ever going to root for.
No.
If next to the guy on the plane who deserved to punch in the face from Mike Tyson, I think Jake Paul's at the very top of that list as well. So, so I guess I'm gonna root for him. But my sons are following it a little bit. Like, I guess there's all these kind of rules that Jake Paul can use kicks and MMA, but Mike Tyson can only box. And Jake Paul,
who's sanctioning the fight,
gets to have headgear. How could this possibly be sanctioned in America?
But I mean, like, what governing body is allowing?
Is it a sporting event, right? It's a sporting event. They have to.
Isn't it through MMA? Isn't it through the UFC? I think it's somehow tied through the UFC.
I wonder where it must be Vegas, because everything goes in Vegas, I guess.
So okay,
Also, by the way, speaking of it, adjacent to MMA, all that stuff, my son kindly pointed out that I think a gentleman you worked with before, Uriah Faber, was seen as he was a coach in one of the fights yesterday. So he pointed him out. So
okay, before I get to my next thing, I want to talk about Uriah Faber for a minute.
Yeah.
In 2007, it was I cannot remember the acronym, but the UFC didn't have the 145-pound guys and the 135-pound guys. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of the network that doesn't exist anymore that covered them. Okay. And I had to so there was 4 fights on this card, and I went from, it was north of San Diego all the way up to Bakersfield, and there was 5 fighters that I had to do these fight profiles for. And one of the other producers flew out. Versus. Thank you, Biff. Thank you. I knew that. And they had hockey for a minute.
Well, basically, they got bought out by NBC.
Right.
It used to be the Outdoor Network, and they turned it to Versus. Yeah.
It was the Outdoor. Here's the fucked up thing. It was the Outdoor Network until 6 o'clock at night, and then it became Versus. It was one of those split cable things. And, so after the NHL lockout, like they're where they had a national contract, they went to a third tier cable outlet that didn't even have its own channel all day. I think in between Outdoor Network and Versus, there was a half-hour window where it was just the test pattern, just during the switch over. I
believe it.
So I'm working for whatever the company that owns the UFC owns this, but they were separate. And first of all, those fighters, the nicest people I've ever dealt with. Like it was, and we road tripped. It was, my wife's friend, she had just finished like a film school thing, and I had her and a couple people. We both had kids. Like, our oldest now, I think he was like 6 months, and her kid was maybe 5, and it was nice. It was a nice trip. It was one, but we met all these fighters. But we meet Uriah Faber, and I got to tell you, so this is 2007. I've never seen a more beautiful face and body in my life. And I mean it. It was like everything about this was perfect. Funny guy. He won his fight. He was a Division I college wrestler. Like, a ranked NCAA guy got into, and a lot of people like that. It's like, well, what the fuck do I do now? Like, I've wrestled my whole life. Yeah. I'm 21, I'm 22. He got into this. So flash forward about 2 or 3 years later, this same friend of my manager's, we were going into the Hooters in Santa Monica to watch a sporting event, and I don't know which it was. And there was a poster for an upcoming fight for UFC. And at this point, that division was incorporated. Like the UFC did now have the 135-pound guys, which, by the way, all of those guys, they're 5'4", 135 pounds.
Tiny guys, yeah.
I don't know an NFL lineman they wouldn't kick the shit out of. Like these guys were fucking just amazing athletes. Yeah. But there's a poster, and Uriah Faber is the headline bout on this fight coming up. His face, dude. I'm like, oh shit. It was, I mean, when I say, if I, on my YouTube, on my Monkey Shark Inc. YouTube thing, I think there's a promo from that project I did. And if you go and look at what Uriah Faber looked like in 2007, I mean, you just wanted to hang him on a wall and like at the Louvre. You know what I mean? Just beautiful. Yeah. And then it was like 3-4 years later, it was like,
what happened to Mickey Rourke?
Yeah, right. Exactly. His blocking game wasn't the strongest. Stop blocking kicks with your face. Like, dude, he was so fucked up. He had my nose. He had my. Wait a minute. Wasn't your nose on that? How is your nose on 3 sides of your face at the same time, Jacques? And it was like, oh.
So you're saying that modeling in MMA is not a good thing.
Just so. And then it was like. 2 years later, I'm doing a Houston Texans game, and part of the halftime show, they were welcoming back Olympic athletes from the Houston area, and one was this girl who was the gold medal in boxing. And again, absolutely beautiful girl. Like she's 22, 23, and she was such a pleasure to deal with. But I'm like, please stop blocking. Just I've seen this movie before, and I don't want to be sexist, but please stop boxing. And I didn't want to tell her.
So she joined MMA.
Right, exactly. And it's like, so Uriah Faber will always be a cautionary tale for me. A sweetheart. I mean, literally, he was so funny. He had I think he went on to with that reality show where they put 10 boxers in this house or 10 MMA guys in that house, and and you're competing to get on a UFC card. He was because I can definitely see him being a broadcaster. He had all of those things, but when I say the Uriah Faber face 2007 versus his face 2010,
now I gotta look this up.
Oh dude, but let's get into, can we talk about the real fight, the only fight that really matters, the fight that's really dividing the world, I think, that is the media is obsessed with? It's the Kendrick Lamar Drake.
Oh, I heard about this. Yeah, okay.
I'm not familiar with these rappers. I don't know anything about Kendrick Drake or Lamar Lamille. No, I don't know Kendrick Lamar or Drake.
Because I was going to say I saw a great TikTok of this cardinal and this praying mantis kind of battling, and the dude put it on with the Pokemon music as the the BGM. It's this is like the best thing I've seen all week.
Well, my sons are, this is their whole world. Their identity is now Team Kendrick Lamar and this Drake battle, and I guess it's pretty serious. It's to the point where.
So let me just interject, and this is the last I'll probably have to say about this thing. I think given the choices, I have no idea what's going on with the beef, but I am definitely Team Kendrick Lamar because it's been known that Drake ruins Maple Leafs playoffs games. So
that's true. That is true. Well, the other thing is, I dropped the oldest one off at school the other day. He gets out of the car. I turn on like the news radio, see what the traffic is. And they're talking about it. Like I get home, and the wife is watching the Seth Meyers show from the night before, and he's talking about it. I'm like, holy shit! And then what's really funny is this clip is now going all over the socials. In like 2008, 2009, whatever sit down interview Obama's doing, the interviewer asked him, it's like, hey, if there was ever a beef battle between Kendrick Lamar and Drake, and here's Obama doing a deep dive, and it's like, well, Drake is great and blah, 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 and X, Y, and Z, and he's an amazing performer, but Kendrick's last album, the lyrics, and blah, blah. And so my son is now the biggest Obama. He would vote for Obama a third time if he could, type thing. And, but my interjection, and I sent it to my son who's allowed to have a phone and social media, and I showed the other one. There's some guy on Instagram who every day posts it's always it's like a 10-second thing where it's Skeletor from He-Man talking, right. and then the clip always ends until we meet again as he's running out of this cave. And it's always something really funny, like, just remember the skin on eyelids is the same, the skin for your eyelids is the same as foreskin. Till we meet again. And it's always, but he said, like, and it just killed me. And it came out a while ago, but now that's resurfaced. It's like, remember, a rap battle between two rappers is just middle or poetry. Yeah, it's just angry men writing poems at each other. And I'm like, so, and then I told my son, I was like, who's winning this battle? It's Kendrick, and here's why. 20 minutes later, no, they both are. No, and I'm like, dude, people who don't know who these guys are relentlessly talking about them. Like the old conservative local Boston news station, WBC, is talking about these freaks. So they're both winning. So even if Drake is losing, and by all estimates, when his third reply, he used AI generated Tupac singing a verse, and it kind of got him shunned in the community. And so Kendrick is winning. It's like, no, they're both winning. They are both winning big time, you dum-dums.
And Drake's cakes are even getting some shrapnel too.
Oh, dude, huge, yeah.
Wait, that's actually a thing? Like he actually has a cake?
No, it's a brand of it's a brand of like it's a brand of.
Say,
I think maybe it's only like northeastern in New England.
Okay,
but it's
I was
like
gonna say because it wouldn't shock me if he had a cake line, but
yeah. Well, Biff's a Little Debbie's guy. Like if there's one thing I know about Biff, he's all about the Little Debbie.
Well, nobody doesn't like Sarah Lee, but so that's a different cake humor. Right here on Carnival Personnel.
You kind of made me sound a little pedo there, so I don't know.
A little. Anyways, so Joe, you playing any games?
Can I say something separate?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
There's a guy that he had a recent, conviction. We're not going to name the person, but when I was thinking, during the game, I was watching somebody get a double minor. I'm thinking, the same penalty that he got. But I digress.
There you go.
I digress.
Hey, a cryptic joke from Biff. Thank you, Biff.
But if you ever have a person who had that kind of a thing, go ahead and use that on me. So it's all yours. It's in the public domain.
Well,
we're going to talk about playing or watching.
No, you know what? Let's talk a little bit more sports before we move on to playing and watching.
God, look at all this sports.
And you know who's going to take the lead on this one? It's going to be our good friend Joe, who actually watched start to finish the roast of Tom Brady.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh, he's been meaning to watch it, but please.
Let's spoil it. No, yeah, I watched all 3 hours. It was the surreal, cringy Patriots reunion I didn't know I needed. It was really good. They had Drew Bledsoe. They got Bill Belichick. They got Robert Kraft. Made a little. He was off to the side of the dais. Of course, the thing that went viral was Jeff Ross's little joke about Tom Brady offering a massage to Robert Kraft on his first day with the Patriots, and then Tom Brady coming up to the mic during the laughter and says, "Knock off that shit." And Jeff Ross going, okay, and then just moving on. It turned out it wasn't a big deal, but it was great. It was Randy Moss did a thing. Julian Edelman was up there. Rob Gronkowski. Willie McGinnis was back there, but he didn't talk. They just referenced him. They would it's almost like they had like this row of it was like a defensive line or an offensive line, because it was just like a bunch of football guys in the back that weren't doing anything or saying anything, but they were constantly referred to. The comedian lineup was, Jeff Ross, Nikki Glazer, who stole the night. Like, her set was, uber viral. Kevin Hart hosted. It was live. Kim Kardashian was booed live, and then 2 days later, Netflix decided to edit out the booing of Kim Kardashian.
Did you know about that, Biff? It was like Joe mentioned it. I'm like, wow, okay. And then again, I'm hearing that on like the regular news. Like it became such a bigger thing because people noticed it. So now instead of it got edited out, but people are talking about that more than they would have.
And I know, and it's whatever. It's the clips out there, but Netflix just decided, maybe we just don't want this to be perpetuated on our platform. Whatever. Even though they went hard, they stayed away from Tom Brady's kids as a topic. I think the comics kind of decided that was off limits, but Gisele Bündchen was not. And I think a big takeaway. Well, a big takeaway from the roast was that there were a lot of questions asked, like, why did Tom Brady do this? Like, why did he put himself through this? I guess all of the celebrities or everybody on the dais, they got money, like $1 million contributed to whatever charity they wanted to, so it was all for their respective charities. So that's why Drew Bledsoe's up there taking shit and giving shit. But a lot of people were asking, like, why did Tom Brady defend Robert Kraft but not Gisele Bündchen? Like, it's kind of like the sides that he chooses was peculiar. But also Kevin Hart brokered a toast, like a shot toast between Belichick and Brady and Robert Kraft. So that event happened. There's just a lot of memorable stuff. Some of the, a lot of the comics are like the Joe Rogan style comics, which are funny for, a certain group. Ron Burgundy makes an appearance. I'm spoiling everything.
No,
sorry, you haven't seen it by now.
It's been out for a while. You're right. It's been out for a while.
Ron Burgundy makes a very long appearance. He was up there for about maybe 15 minutes. It seemed like 15 minutes, or maybe it was like 10 minutes. But he was up there doing his thing. He didn't break character. He wasn't Will Ferrell, Who else? There are a couple of local comics. There's a woman named Sam J from Boston. She has more of a masculine vibe to her. So there were comics giving her shit for like looking like some of the Patriots, like just like really like mean jokes. It was brutal. It was.
Hey, were they doing the Maud Adams type of things?
Yeah, right. It was very, very brutal. Gronkowski did a lot of like
Edelman thing, right? There was Edelman content on Gronkowski's thing.
Yeah. Right? There was the R word came and went a couple of times. In reference to Robert Gronkowski. Dana White did a bit, although he said, "I'm going to keep this short, like Gronkowski's bus," which I thought was a good line.
Oh my god!
I mean, but there's just so many great lines that I don't. You hear like just, and Bill Belichick did a set. Like a whole goddamn set, and like swore, and it was wild.
Have you seen Belichick outside? Like, have you seen him on like Pat McAfee? Everybody has said that he's actually a hilarious guy, but he has to do a certain things because of his job. If you ever see him on like the Pat McAfee show, he's freaking hilarious.
That's probably why he was hilarious. He doesn't have a job.
Well, yeah. And yeah, so the Nikki Glaser, she was a nationally known comic. Yeah. She was, no. I'm going back a few years. She was a nationally known comic, and a strong B-list comic nationally. The roast of Peyton Manning is what honestly catapulted her. And she was, and it was funny because I've heard her talking about this on Conan, a couple of years ago, where she was saying she knew if she did well, it would really help, but she was not prepared for like how much that catapulted her to that. And so, so it must have even been more pressure this time because now people are expecting. But, I watched some of it. I've seen a lot of clips, but her joke about how did you lose $30 million in crypto? Even Gronkowski knows that's not real money.
Yes. That got a standing ovation. And she also talked about how it was weird to do it live because everything was on prompter. And on a roast, you typically like scratch off jokes that are done, if they're covered by another comedian ahead of you, you scratch out a joke and you kind of adjust your set on the fly. Whereas this was like, it was locked in. Like you just kind of like did the jokes, even if it kind of possibly echoed a previous joke. It was like, okay, it didn't matter. You couldn't get around it really.
Interesting. Oh.
And this is like I think the first live roast, like all those old Dean Martin roasts, those were all like really bad because they were, they were stitched together. They were obviously like nobody knew. Yeah. That was the good part.
There was no studio audience. That was at a soundstage, and it was
that's not true though. I actually learned that there were actually in front of like some segments were.
Well, I mean, there was a boo, right? If there was a boo, there's a studio audience.
Oh no, the old Dean Martin.
Oh, the old one, Dean Martin.
Oh, those had audiences, but then like there were obviously like reactions that were edited in. But this was all live and raw, and it was cool. Like I don't know, it was certainly an event. I mean, there was a lot of cringy, kind of like uncomfortable, squirmy moments, especially from Gronkowski's set. But you know what? It was there was one joke I think that Brady had. Maybe it was I think it was Brady who said it. He's like, our motto was do your job day in and day out. But after seeing Rob Gronkowski on Fox, I have to say, Gronk, don't do your job. just stop doing your job.
So Nikki Glaser was making the rounds on whatever, the various podcasts. So she was actually telling some of the jokes that she didn't tell, like that she had kind of. So if you ever say, some of those are pretty good.
Oh God, yes, they were. Right. Well, one of the jokes she told Stern, like the next day, she was live on Stern, and she goes, I couldn't say, I didn't say on she said kids were off limits, so I couldn't tell the joke. To say to Tom Brady, Tom, after the show we should make out and you can pretend I'm one of your kids. Because of the way he openly kissed his son, and yes, that was the thing.
That my son's, if you mention Tom Brady, it's not the 7 Super Bowl rings. It's the first thing they will say is Kendrick is better than Drake, and then they will say he made out with his son.
Yes. Nikki Glaser's line about, Tom has 7 rings. Well, 8 if you count the one that Giselle gave back.
Oh,
It's just
see, that's not funny because she didn't give the ring back.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's it. One other thing is, at the very end of Kraft's thing, he did like maybe 5 minutes on the side or whatever. He kind of gives a toast, but then he looks right in the camera at the end and it's like, oh, by the way, Vladimir Putin, if you're watching, I want my fucking ring back.
Which is one of the best stories ever.
Yeah.
One of the best stories. Like 3 different president administrations had to tell him stop asking. Like literally 3, because he's been pissed about that for a very, very, very long time.
Can't they just make him another one? Can't they just make him
it's
not the same.
But the Drew Bledsoe thing. He's always been really funny. And when he got inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame, he gave a speech where he's like, everybody talks about how smart Tom Brady is. He isn't that smart. He doesn't get the basic concepts of football. Backup quarterback. You back up this quarterback. And that son of a bitch never understood his role in this friend. And it's so to see them open the show with a Drew Bledsoe joke and stuff, it was great. So what I saw, it was great. I mean, I haven't had 3 hours to watch it. And if I did, I'd be watching Doctor Who. But thank you, our sports correspondent Joe. For now let's get back to the geek from the podcast. Also, Joe, what are you doing gaming wise?
I just started Red Dead Redemption 2 7 years after it was released. Thank you.
You want to talk to my son about that?
Right. Oh, is he still playing Red Dead?
No, I think he's done with it. So
Oh, yeah. So I picked that. It was I got it from the library, so that's why I got it, because it was free. But other than that, not a whole lot of gaming, which a lot of people listening to this podcast are breathing a sigh of relief.
Well, but isn't there some big brouhaha about the successor to the Switch that Nintendo's coming out with or something like that?
Nintendo released an announcement this week saying that there will not be an announcement at the they do these quarterly announcements called Nintendo Directs. So ahead of the next Nintendo Direct, Nintendo decided to say, we're not announcing what the next Switch is going to be. We're going to do it later in the fiscal year. So they announced that there will be an announcement, just not at the next announcement.
Yeah. Well, because that was on my Japanese news feed, so.
Okay, but not the stolen artifacts from the Battle of Okinawa. Okay, all right.
Well, that wasn't stolen. It was escrow. They were held in escrow. It was.
Okinawa is barely Japan, so it's a stolen nation. So kind of like Hawaii is to the U.S.
Yes.
Portuguese. We could right there you go. We could do a deep dive into all of this. We won't, but we definitely could. The only gaming news that has come across my plate is my son was telling me about this, and then a couple days later, I saw a clip online. I guess if there's an update to the greatest game of all time, Arkham Asylum, and it's only being released on the Meta 3 VR set. VR set. It's like what?
Wow.
It's called like Arkham Shadows, and I don't. It's just an announcement teaser, right? Like it wasn't like they didn't go in depth to like what is actually. It's probably one of these side story bullshit things. Like it probably isn't going to be a major.
Did you already buy one of those headsets?
No, we have the other two. We had the PS4 headset, which like all the rescue animals my wife finds good homes for. We found a good home for this.
Okay.
I'd say a very good home. I can't think of a better home for it to have gone to. I know it's well fed.
Thank you.
And then is it
missing any parts? I'm just kidding.
Like
three-legged.
Which, by the way, sidebar, Joe, I think the best laugh I got last night was another line that Joe wrote where I described the dogs my wife gets. It's like she could get a call that 9 hours away, somebody dumped at the shelter a 19-year-old Shih Tzu that's blind, an odd number of legs. That I think the odd number of legs.
Yes, I got an odd number of laughs too. Yeah. It was really funny.
But we did buy a couple Oculuses. So we had the PS4 headset. We have a couple Oculuses, but we don't have the Meta 3.
The Meta Quest 3. Yeah.
You know, so and will we? It's to be, it's to be seen.
Yeah,
but
whatever.
But I'm
Just
guessing.
wait until the reviews for this game come out.
Right,
It'll still be there.
But well, the three Arkham games. There's technically four, but the three Arkham games that came out in that series were Game of the Year, and they were great. But since then, like the Suicide Squad was panned. The Gotham Knights, which was the what do you call it? The sequel to the last Batman game. It got panned very bad. So yes, I'm not rushing out and buying anything.
But did you get those anyway?
Is that really the point, Biff? Yes.
I'm just asking
of course.
Very simple question that could be answered by either yes or no.
It's show and tell time. Here goes Jacques. Either that or he walked off. He stormed off his own podcast. Well, that's a podcast. Good night. Oh, here he is. He's back.
Can you see?
Yeah, Gotham Knights. There it is. That's very nice.
Was it 2 feet? Now.
That's very nice, Jacques. We like your game.
Have I played it? No. Is there a system down on this level of the house? No. So, but I have it. It keeps me warm at night knowing that's in the corner is never going to get played. Shut up, both of you. But anyways.
Just asking questions. Just asking questions.
It's like Jim Brewer during COVID. Just asking questions.
Hey, I'm going to ask a question. How many times is that fuckhead going to get, fined and censored for violating the court order before they say, you know what, you're going to spend a couple hours downstairs in a little room?
That'll never happen.
Yeah, it's never going to happen.
He's not going to jail. What the fuck are you talking about?
Of course he's
not.
All
bullshit.
Bullshit. My line. All right.
Hilarious.
Parenting tips.
I just think it's funny that his lawyers are struggling with all the gas that's coming out of his,
Oh my God,
dude! He is so lucky. He is so lucky that there's not cameras in the court, because if there's footage of him falling asleep, that would honestly haunt him forever. Like the Sleepy Joe thing would go away instantly if there's actual footage. It's one thing to hear the stories about him farting and falling asleep, but if there was footage of that, he is so lucky that
there's footage of him staring at the sun. There's footage of him getting a mugshot.
That's a lot different. That's a lot different than falling asleep repeatedly.
There's footage of him peeing on a Russian hooker. I mean, there's so much footage.
Joe, no. The hooker was peeing on him. So
when you do that, is it? Would you say it's slarting, or is it feeping? Is it feeping or slarting? What's the proper term?
All right. Parenting tip, boys. What do you have?
Like I said, I said this many times. You know what? Take full advantage of your child that can drive, because I forgot to get a few things for, like a Mother's Day card. I forgot to get it. And they said, hey, you haven't gotten a Mother's Day card yet, right? And so, guilted him into, you really need to get a Mother's Day card. And then, hey, can we just make it from both of us?
Oh, wait, yeah. Joseph, what do you have?
Just 4 simple words. Be smart, don't start.
How long you been working on that one?
I got to bed around 2:30.
So my parenting tip, my little guy has fallen down the rabbit hole of reading some manga, and which is great. It's interesting to see.
Which one's he reading?
So yep, he finished Jujutsu Kaisen. Sorry. He right now is on Dan to Dan. There's several different lines that if you said, oh, it's this one or this one, but he finished and it was really nice because the library, as Joe has been finding out with the games, there's consortiums. So even if they don't have yours, the closest library to us is part of a 28 branch consortium.
Yeah, they'll just bring it in. Yeah,
of which my sister library is one of them. So my sister curated some books for him, and she said, "Hey, I found some books, and I went and picked them up." And what was really good is my parenting tip is yeah, you know what? If you do a little legwork, if you lead the horse to water, maybe it will drink. And this past week, he thought he was done. My sister found 3 new titles. Fire Fist, I think, is one, Biff. I'm trying to think of the other ones. Oh, I couldn't get him. But I did bring home a Demon Slayer. And he goes, I'm not reading that, blah, blah, blah. I said, it's not for you. I got it for me. Biff is in it. I wanted to see what it's all about. Oh, okay. And then I turn around and it's like he was reading it like a half hour later.
That's actually a good story.
So he had probably end up getting into it. But so my sister the other day, sent 3 volume 1s to our library for him, and which I brought him home, and he's like, I'm not reading these. This one is by this guy. I don't like this. And this was, and then like a half hour later, I turn around and he's on the couch bothering his friend, who comes over after school because we're his ride to football. And my son was annoying him so much by trying to show him stuff that he went into the other room and he was reading on the couch. I took a picture, sent it to my sister. So that's the thing. It's like, if you want them to do something like, what is that term that I'm not good at? Reading, put in a little extra legwork. So I've just gone to the library, picked them up, left them there. It's like, you don't have to read these. Your aunt sent them here, and if you want them, great. But I'm going to read it. But it's funny, not funny. It is interesting, and it kind of makes you feel a little bit more like a traveled person when you see somebody reading a book right to left. Yeah. I mean, it's a little thing. It's a little thing. He is a little confused. It's like, why do all these book titles have girls with really big boobs on the cover? I'm like, well, the people who draw them, and
have you not shown them your all the Marvels and all of the traditionally comics?
How come he didn't bat an eye when all these big buff, barrel-chested guys would be adorning covers on American comic books for decades, that's normal, right?
It's 100%.
You throw a couple of boobs up there and oh my word, what's all this thing?
No, he wasn't saying that. Like, none of us were like that, but he's like, part in his eyes, it's like, this isn't part of the story. It's like,
I would say this. I would say, I know that reading is great and all that, but I would say, have a talk with your son the moment he starts asking about the octopus.
Huh? Tentacles.
The tentacles.
Yes, a staple in Japanese animation, right?
Yeah. When he starts asking about that, I would say, you should have a talk.
Japanese animated tentacle porn.
The tentacle talk. Tentacle talk. Thank you for coming to my tentacle talk.
All right, gentlemen. I have ignored management on this Mother's Day, and I will continue to ignore her because next on my list is I told the boys to be in the car at 1:00 because we're going to go see Grandma. So,
oh God,
there you go.
So part of my Mother's Day gift to my wife is we're going to leave you alone.
Leave the house. Leave the house. Give her some alone time.
Well, thank you, Jacques. Biff, a pleasure as always. Thank you, dear subscriber, to the Carnival Personnel podcast. Available wherever podcasts are downloaded, which you already know. But anyways, happy Mother's Day. Word to all the mothers out there. We wouldn't be here without you, right? So in a way, this is all your fault. Thank you, women. We're blaming you. Sorry. I know. Hey, you want equality, you're going to be taking equal blame for all of the bad things that men do. No, we're terrible people, and but we love you. We love you. Why aren't you listening to our podcast? By the way, I'm speaking to no mothers. Maybe one. I think Jacques' sister is the only woman who listens to this podcast. You know what? Hey, prove me wrong, Internet. If you're a woman out there who's also a mother and you listen to the podcast, try commenting on our YouTube videos. What's that you say? We've disabled comments on our YouTube videos? Oh, well, c'est la vie. What do you want us to do? We're not engaging with our audience. No, sirree, Bob. We'll be lucky if we spell half the words correctly on our posts. We'll be lucky if we get the order in which the acronym of the podcast is correct. It could be CPP. It could be CCP. It could be OPP. It could be just be the word P, like piss. Like instead of piss, it's just P. That's our podcast now. We're the P podcast. Oh, and what's a and he's like, and she's like, go. What am I saying? I don't know. I've derailed. What is this? I'm getting like a warning. I think I yelled so loud I'm getting a warning on my computer. Anywho, enough of this nonsense. Tune in next week. Our sideshow guest will be one Joe Katz from the Boston comedy scene. And after that, another brilliant episode of Carnival Personnel coming at you. This is Joe and Biff and Jacques saying, don't forget,